Yo, what's going on, yo? I'm JB Hoops, and today I got my mock draft 3.0. I'm gonna have picks 1 through 30, so the whole first round, and let's just get right into it. So starting us off at number 1, I have the Orlando Magic selecting Paolo Banchero, the 6'10 freshman out of Duke. They definitely could go with Chet here, and they will probably go with Jabari Smith, but I really like Paolo Banchero for them because I think Wendell Carter Jr. is a guy who can play the 5 and will form an amazing front court with Paolo Banchero. The Magic will definitely have to make some moves to shorten up their rotation. They just have so many guys that deserve to get minutes. But I think Paolo can be their number 1 option, lead them into the playoffs, and just having him surrounded by so many excellent complementary players like Jalen Suggs, Franz Wagner, Wendell Carter Jr., Markelle Fultz. They're going to be a tough team. I think they can make the playoffs if they take Banchero. And I just think they really need that number 1 scoring option, and I think Paolo has the potential to be that. So that's why I have the Magic selecting him with the first overall pick in this year's draft. At pick 2, I have the Thunder going with Chet Holmgren, the 7'1 freshman out of Gonzaga. OKC probably get their guy. Chet seems like an OKC pick. He'll be a perfect center for SGA, Josh Giddey, and the rest of the young Thunder team. He can space the floor, be a lob threat, and then defensively he's elite. He can defend all coverages in the pick and roll and be a deterrent at the rim. I think he might need some time adjusting to the physicality of the league. He might have to play some minutes at the 4, but I can definitely see OKC taking another big man along with Chet. So Chet will be able to play a role like Mobley did this year for the Cavs. Next up are the Rockets, and I have them selecting Jabari Smith Jr., the 6'10 freshman out of Auburn. Whilst I'm definitely intrigued by taking Jaden and Ivey here at 3, I feel like making the most athletic backcourt of all time would definitely be intriguing. I think the Rockets will go with one of the 3 bigs in this class. So in this scenario, I have them taking Jabari Smith. He'll help out defensively and form a pretty tough inside-out combination with Jalen Green, KPJ, and his game also fits pretty nicely with Alperen Sengun. I also think Jabari Smith would fit perfectly in a situation with a dominant scoring guard like Jalen Green, as I do view him more as a number 2 or number 3 option rather than a number 1, so I would love his fit in Houston, so I have the Rockets taking him at 3. I think the Kings will probably look into trading this pick, which I don't think will be a good idea at all. They're not going to get great value for it. So for now, I have them taking best player available, which is by far Jaden Ivey. I think he has superstar potential, and I think it would be stupid to factor in fit just because of De'Aaron Fox. He's an amazing athlete, going to be incredible with NBA spacing. He can shoot it, put pressure on the rim, play make. Defensively, he has a 6'10 wingspan and he's intense. I think if the lottery panned out differently, he would have a chance to be number 1. So I really like this pick regardless of fit, so I have the Kings taking Jaden Ivey at 4. At 5 are the Pistons. They did get unlucky in the lottery, probably had their eyes set on one of the top 3 bigs, and in this instance also miss out on Jaden Ivey, which is pretty tragic. So they will probably explore options of trading this pick, maybe packaging Jeremy Grant and 5 to trade back and get some more young assets. But for now I have them selecting Shaedon Sharpe, the 6'6 guy out of high school. I would really hate if they selected Keegan Murray with this pick. I just don't think that's great value at all. And whilst I would be definitely hesitant to take Sharpe this high, the skill set, athleticism and smoothness are just too much to ignore. I also wouldn't mind if they took Jalen Duren here. I think he'd be a great center for Cade. But for now I have the Pistons taking Shaedon Sharpe. At 6 I have the Pacers selecting AJ Griffin, the 18-year-old freshman out of Duke. I really like the direction the Pacers are headed in with Tyrese Halliburton as their long-term point guard. I'm also a big fan of Isaiah Jackson at the 5. They look to be committed to Miles Turner, so their front court is kind of figured out. So I have them selecting another wing, and I think AJ Griffin has a ton of upside. He can create for himself. He's one of the best shooters in this class. Shot basically 50% from 3 for most of the season. I think he's getting severely underrated just because of the athleticism concerns. I think he'll be fine defensively, so I have the Pacers selecting him at 6. The Blazers are on the clock at 7. I think they'll definitely look to trade this pick. I'm not a fan of this selection at all, but I have the Blazers going with Keegan Murray, the 6'8 sophomore out of Iowa. I do think there's a 50-50 chance the Blazers keep this pick. They'll probably look to trade for like Jeremy Grant or OG Anunoby, but for now I have them taking Keegan Murray. I'm not super high on him, but I acknowledge the production, the skill set, but I'm just not super confident in most of his game translating to the NBA level. But I think he's someone who will shoot the ball well and give them some defensive versatility. So I wouldn't be mad if the Blazers took him at 7, I just think it's a little high, but for now I have them taking Keegan Murray. At 8 I have the Pelicans selecting the 6'8 point guard out of the G League Ignite, Dyson Daniels. The Pelicans just don't really have that go-to playmaker. I think Dyson Daniels can provide that for them. He's another huge wing defender to pair with Herb Jones. I think he's going to be a really great player. I'm a big fan of his shooting mechanic. So whilst his shooting percentages are a bit concerning, I think he'll continue to improve. He shot 45% from 3 over his last 9 games. Him and Herb Jones are just going to be a devastating defensive duo. And I really think the Pelicans have a super bright future. I wouldn't hate going with BENNEDICT Mathurin or Johnny Davis here. I'm just a bit higher on Dyson Daniels, so I have the Pelicans taking him at 8. At 9, I have the Spurs taking Jalen Duren, the 6'11 freshman out of Memphis. Spurs get extremely lucky in this scenario. This is my favourite fit for them in the whole draft. Jalen Duren is just a monster. Jakob Poeltl is a little bit older, doesn't really fit their timeline. They're already stacked with wings and look to have their point guard of the next decade in DeJounte Murray. So I think taking the high upside 18-year-old monster who is built like Dwight Howard in Jalen Duren would just be perfect for the Spurs. He'll be great in their system. I think he has a lot more upside than he's given credit for. He's crazy athletic, can pass, has a mid-range shot, the mechanics are clean, he's super young, and if the Spurs get him, they're going to be an elite defensive team in the future. At 10, I have the Wizards selecting BENNEDICT Mathurin, the 6'6 wing out of Arizona. The Wizards are another team who have a lot of good players, yet still underperform. I expect them to explore Beal trades this offseason, and they do desperately need a point guard for the future, but there isn't really one I would take at 10. They'll probably have to trade up or trade down for one. So for now, I have them taking BENNEDICT Mathurin, one of the best shooters in the class, a great athlete, and whilst he needs to improve defensively, long term I think he'll be an amazing 3-and-D wing. So that's why I have the Wizards taking him at 10. The Knicks are on the clock at 11, and I have them selecting Johnny Davis, the 6'6 shooting guard out of Wisconsin. The Knicks would probably like a point guard in this draft, but I am a big fan of Immanuel Quickley. I think he'll be great long term as their starting point guard, so I think bringing in Johnny Davis is perfect. I think he'll be a much better shooter than his percentages showed. Of the top guys, he probably played in the worst context of any of them, so I think he'll be a much better shooter. He competes on both ends, is a super high level defender, has the ability to create his own shot, and I think with Quickley, RJ Barrett and Johnny Davis, they'll form a really tough trio. The Thunder are up at 12, and I have them selecting TARI, the 6'8 sophomore out of LSU. They definitely could go younger with this pick, taking a guy like Jeremy Sochan, or another wing if there's one they like still on the board. But I'm really high on TARI. I think he's going to be an amazing NBA player. He's extremely strong and athletic. He's one of the best defenders in this class. He's switchable and versatile with a crazy 7'2" wingspan. He's just a guy that gets it done on both ends of the court. So I have the Thunder selecting TARI at 12. At 13, I have the Hornets selecting Jeremy Sochan, the 6'9 freshman out of Baylor. The Hornets do desperately need a center in this year's draft, and whilst there is risk by not taking Mark Williams here at 13, unless the Cavs are looking to trade pick 14, there's no reason Mark Williams shouldn't be on the board at 15. And in getting Sochan, they get one of the best defenders in the class, who has great size, can help them out on the glass and defensively. He's a great passer and has shown a lot of offensive flashes too. He's also super young, and I think he'll be a great fit on that Hornets team. At 14, I have the Cavs selecting MALAKI BRANHAM, the 6'6 combo guard out of Ohio State. He can score the ball on all three levels, he defends with intensity and has a great 6'10 wingspan. He's a guy I can see going as high as 8, so I think getting him here at 14 would be great for the Cavs, but I would definitely take Branham if the Cavs plan on moving on from Sexton. But if not, they could go with a bigger wing like Ousmane Dieng or Nikola Jovic here, but for now I have them taking MALAKI BRANHAM. The Hornets are back on the board at 15, and I have them selecting Mark Williams, the 7'2 sophomore out of Duke. The Hornets get a guy who fills their need of a defensive anchor at the 5. He'll help them out tremendously on the glass and defensively, and they'll still be able to retain the key guys on their roster through drafting a center rather than going out and trading for someone like Rudy Gobert. I think Mark Williams can immediately be a starting center in the NBA and be impactful. He'll be able to run the floor hard and throw down lobs from LaMelo. It'll be really sick to see, so I have the Hornets taking Mark Williams at 15. Next up, I have the Hawks taking Ousmane Dieng, the 6'10 French wing out of the New Zealand Breakers. The Hawks do desperately need defense, and whilst I don't think Dieng will be a great defender early on in his career, he'll be solid enough, and I think he is the best player available for the Hawks at 16. He'll be able to take some of the handling pressure off Trae Young, he'll be able to create for himself and for others. The Hawks definitely could draft a fit and take a guy like Dyson and would be a great defensive partner for Trae Young, but for now I just have them taking best player available, and in my opinion that is Ousmane Dieng. At 17, I have the Rockets selecting MARJON, the 6'7 wing out of the G League Ignite. I just did a video on him if you want to check it out, it was my last video. But back to the topic at hand, the Rockets really could go anywhere with this pick. They just have so many young guys on their roster, so I don't really know where they'll go. But for now I have them taking MARJON, who will help them out defensively a ton, and I think he'll be able to impact winning wherever he goes. So I have the Rockets taking him at 17. The Bulls are up at 18, and I have them selecting LIDDELL, the 6'7 junior out of Ohio State. The Bulls desperately need help on the defensive end. That was probably the biggest flaw in their team this season, specifically in the front court. I'm really unsure of how their roster will look next season. They might lose Levine in free agency, they might look to trade Vucevic, but LIDDELL is a guy who can fit in any system, hit threes, effectively guard 3 through 5. He's an amazing shot blocker, averaged over 2.5 a game, and I think he'll be excellent on the Bulls as a guy who can play the 4 or the small ball 5 and be really effective. So I have the Bulls taking EJ LIDDELL at 18. At 19, I have the Timberwolves selecting TYTY Washington Jr., the 6'4" combo guard out of Kentucky. The Wolves look to have a great young core with very few holes on their team, but I think TYTY Washington could give them great backup minutes at either guard spot, as a guy who can play on the ball to set up his teammates, or off the ball given the usage Cat and Ant will get, as TYTY Washington is an excellent spot-up shooter. So at 19, I have the Timberwolves selecting TYTY Washington Jr. At 20, I have the Spurs going with Nikola Jovic, the 6'11" wing out of Serbia. I really like his fit on the Spurs, especially if they get Duren like in this scenario. I think he'll excel playing in a system with great defenders to help him out on that end. And then offensively, he'll be able to do his thing as a secondary creator to DeJounte Murray. So I have the Spurs taking Nikola Jovic at pick 20. At 21, I have the Nuggets selecting Kendall Brown, the 6'8" freshman out of Baylor. I think the Nuggets will be a super interesting team next season, assuming MPJ and Jamal Murray are both back and healthy. They probably do need some wings and shooting guards, but I'm a big fan of Bones Highland, and I think they'll be able to trade for one, or maybe sign a guy like Gary Harris. So for now, I have them going with Kendall Brown. He'll be able to fill a similar role to Aaron Gordon. Brown is an excellent cutter and will get heaps of easy finishes playing alongside Jokic. He's a talented defender. I think he'll be able to guard 1 through 4. He's super athletic, probably one of the best athletes in this class. So I have the Nuggets taking him at 21. At 22, I have the Grizzlies selecting Jaden Hardy, the 6'4" combo guard out of the G League Ignite. In my opinion, Hardy this low is a steal, but it is looking like I'm much higher on him than consensus. But I think Hardy will be a great combo guard who can get buckets and take some pressure off Ja Morant. If they can get Hardy in the draft, the Grizzlies will be scary. They already have so many guys, so I just hope whoever they draft gets some significant PT to prove themselves. But I think a 2-guard who's able to create their own shot and play make a little bit is exactly what they need next to Ja. They'll probably struggle a little bit defensively, but Jaren is just so good there, so he'll be able to make up for it. So at 22, I have the Grizzlies selecting Jaden Hardy. The Sixers are up next at 23 since the Nets deferred the pick. So I have the Sixers selecting Ochai Agbaji, the 6'6" senior out of Kansas. The Sixers definitely could go several other directions with this pick, but I have them taking an NBA-ready collegiate champion in Ochai Agbaji. Agbaji is an elite shooter, he defends with intensity and has great length, and then is also uber athletic. He'll fit in perfectly with Embiid, Maxey and Harden, as the Sixers definitely need guys who fit that 3-and-D mold. They could also go with a guy like Jake LaRavia here to fill their little hole at the 4 spot, get Embiid some help in the front court, because Tobias Harris is very inconsistent and I think they'll probably look to trade him this offseason, but for now I have them taking the shooter in Ochai Agbaji. At 24, I have the Bucks selecting Jalen Williams, the 6'6" junior out of Santa Clara. I think this is a great pick for the Bucks. Their backup point guard last season in the playoffs was George Hill. That tells you all you need to know. Jalen Williams is a guy who can play on or off the ball, he can shoot the 3, and has a crazy 7'2" wingspan. He'll be able to play some backup point guard minutes, but also play with guys like Jrue Holiday, Chris Middleton, Giannis. I think he's good enough to eventually even close for them. That would be such a deadly lineup. So I have the Bucks taking Jalen Williams at 24. At 25, the Spurs are up with their 3rd pick in the first round, and I have them taking Bryce McGowens, the 6'7" 2-guard out of Nebraska. I highly doubt they keep all 3 picks in the first round. They'll probably look to package a few to trade up or trade for a veteran, but for now I have them taking Bryce McGowens. He's a high upside 2-guard with great size, he's an elite athlete, and I think he'll be a much better shooter in the NBA than his 27% shows. He can create off the bounce, has the physical tools to be a solid defender. He'd be really nice in the Spurs system. I just think they have too many guys and I don't see them taking 3 guys in this first round. But for now I have them taking McGowens at 25. The Mavs are up at 26 and I have them taking Ismael Kamagate, the 6'11" center out of France. They definitely could go with a guy like Jalen Williams or Jake LaRavia here, and they're probably the 2 guys I would go to if Ismael Kamagate is off the board. But I think the one thing the playoffs highlighted is the Mavs' need for a real rim protector and lob threat, and that's exactly what Ismael Kamagate can bring to the table. He's super quick, an excellent rim runner, can play in the pick and roll with Luka, and then defensively he's very versatile and a great shot blocker. He is quite raw despite being 21 years old, but I think playing with Luka will be great for him and he will develop really quick in the league. At 27, I have the Heat selecting Dalen Terry, the 6'7" point guard out of Arizona. Dalen Terry is for sure a guy I can see getting taken in the 15 to 20 range. I just think he's that type of guy. But in this mock, he doesn't rise and the Heat get a steal at 27. I feel like the Heat could turn him into a monster. He would fit so perfectly in their system. He's a huge point guard who can facilitate, play defense, and spot up. And I just think he would be an excellent pickup for the Heat, who kind of lack point guard play, especially because Kyle Lowry's getting ancient. So I have the Heat taking Dalen Terry at 27. At 28, I have the Warriors selecting Jake LaRavia, the 6'8 junior out of Wake Forest. Jake LaRavia is another guy who will probably go higher than this. He can do it all on the floor, shoot it, pass it, defend. He's an excellent cutter. Despite the fact he's played 3 seasons of college ball, he's still only 20 years old. He would be excellent in the Warriors system, and I think he'd be able to give them reliable forward minutes from the get-go. At 29, I have the Grizzlies selecting Christian KOLOKO, the 7-foot junior out of Arizona. The Grizzlies have way too much talent to take another 2 guys in this class. I expect them to package a few guys and potentially some picks too to go all in on contending around Ja. But if they do end up keeping the pick, I think a center would be great. And Christian KOLOKO would be a nice, super athletic center who can get them rebounds, block shots, and throw down lobs. I also think he has potential as a shooter. He shot extremely well in the combine. So I think he probably will be a first round pick. And in this instance, I have the Grizzlies picking him at 29. Now for the final pick in the first round and the final pick of this video, I have the Nuggets selecting Blake Wesley, the 6'4 combo guard out of Notre Dame. He can create his own shot, he has a super tough handle, and then he's also amazing at getting to the rim. And then defensively, he has a 6'9 wingspan and he really competes on that end. He's going to be a really good player, and I honestly doubt he's still on the board at 30. I think with a few teams trading up in the draft, he'll probably get taken between 15 and 25, but without trades, I have him falling to 30, and that concludes my mock draft 3.0. So that is all I got for this one. My final big board of this draft cycle will drop a few days before the draft, so stay tuned for that. If you made it to the end, I appreciate you. Leave a like, comment down below, subscribe, turn notifications on. JB Hoops.